Today, you're going to learn how epigenetic inheritance, the trauma passed down through your DNA, might be the very reason you keep getting triggered in your relationships. And more importantly, how to stop repeating the past and start consciously designing something new. I'm Dr. Serafina Ankhalla. I'm a medicine woman, somatic healer, trauma-trained practitioner, and the creator of the Relationship Design Framework. For over a decade, I've helped people break intergenerational cycles, rewire their nervous systems, and consciously redesign every part of their relational life, not just with others, but with themselves. I bridge neuroscience, sacred practice, somatic healing, and emotional intelligence to help people stop living from unconscious patterns and start living from their truth. Let me show you how it works. Have you ever wondered why certain patterns show up in your relationships again and again? Maybe it's the way you shut down, or the way you overgive, or it's the people you're drawn to, the fights you keep having, or perhaps it's the longing that never quite gets met. What if I told you that those patterns didn't start with you? In fact, some of them may be generations old. Let me tell you a really cool story. At Emory University, researchers exposed male mice to the smell of cherry blossoms while they gave the mice mild electric shocks. Very quickly, the mice learned to fear the scent. Every time they smelled cherry blossoms, their sympathetic nervous systems or their fight and flight response would get activated because they're afraid of being shocked. And here's where the experiment got really wild. When those mice produced babies, the babies would have a fear response whenever they were exposed to the smell of cherry blossoms, even though they had never been shocked and they had never even met their fathers. And it didn't stop there. Even the grandchildren of those original mice were sensitive to the same smell. That's 2 full generations affected by a fear that they never experienced directly. So what happened? It wasn't the DNA itself that changed. It was the expression of certain genes that changed. That's called epigenetics, when experience leaves a biochemical imprint on how your genes function. In this study, the gene responsible for detecting that cherry blossom scent became more active, and changes were passed down through the sperm. No one rewrote the genetic code, but the reaction to the specific trigger was inherited. This is known as epigenetic inheritance. And while this research was done in mice, they're seeing similar effects in humans. Children of famine survivors show different stress patterns. Grandchildren of Holocaust survivors often carry elevated trauma responses. Trauma echoes forward, and this is what a trigger really is. A trigger is when your body responds in the present moment to something that happened in the past, or even something that was passed down from the past. When you're experiencing a trigger, you're not fully present with what's actually happening right now. You're running a protective survival program that your system believes is keeping you safe. This might look like shutting down when someone raises their voice, or feeling abandoned when your partner needs space, or over-explaining to avoid disappointing someone, or feeling rage or panic that's way bigger than the moment requires. That's not you overreacting. That's your nervous system reenacting a pattern, a blueprint that your body learned or inherited. And that's why your relationship patterns aren't random. They're inherited. They're learned. They're unconsciously repeated and reinforced unless you bring those patterns from the unconscious into the conscious mind and do the work to reprogram them. A relationship blueprint is the sum of what your nervous system has learned about love, connection, power, safety, and worth. It's shaped by your childhood attachment experiences, the emotional climate you grew up in, cultural and ancestral conditioning, and yes, epigenetic trauma. Maybe your caregiver was anxious. Maybe love meant overfunctioning. Maybe no one ever taught you that boundaries are sacred, so your body adapted, and that adaptation became your pattern. But here's the good news. You can interrupt the pattern. You can rewire the response. You can learn how to stay present instead of reactive, to choose intimacy over defense, and to create safety instead of just waiting for it. This is the power of relationship design. In my 3-level process, we begin with awareness. This means waking up to your blueprint, learning to actually see the patterns you've been living inside of, because you can't change what you can't see. Awareness is always the first step to lasting transformation. Next comes choice. Once you've seen the pattern, you begin to build the capacity to interrupt it and start practicing new ways of responding, relating, and being, replacing default reactions with intentional design. And finally, we move to creation. This is where you consciously design your relationships rooted in presence, in truth, and in love. You're no longer just surviving your connections. You're shaping them to reflect who you really are and what you really want. And your whole life starts to reflect that shift. This is not about blame. This is about freedom. You didn't choose the nervous system you were born into, but you can choose how you relate to it now. You can break the cycle. You can end the trance. You can become the pattern breaker your lineage has been waiting for. So if you're ready to stop repeating the past and start living from your deepest, most embodied truth, keep following me here and on my other channels, where I will keep teaching you how to break old patterns, reconnect with your body's wisdom, and consciously design relationships that are rooted in truth, presence, and love. We can do this together. You were born to remember love. You were born to shift the story. You were born to design a new way of relating. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more videos like this, where science meets soul and design meets devotion. See you next time.